I see that my opponent has made 5 points as to why reparation payments should not be made to African Americans, starting with identification and ending with ancestry, so I will address each one of her points chronologically. She says that the problem with making reparation payments is that we would have to identify each person's ancestry and see if they had slave ancestors by spending money and making a way for each person to track their ancestry. However, there already is a simple and cheap way to check a person's ancestry. By simply going on your laptop and typing in Ancestry.com, you can trace your lineage several centuries and more. Ancestry.com offers a 14-day trial, so it would also be completely free. And if Ancestry.com decides to take away their free trial, I'm 100% certain that every African American would gladly pay $10 to $15 to see if they qualify for reparation payments. Although Kathy does raise a valid point stating that reparations would increase debt, the increased debt would only be temporary. Money is literally being put into people's hands to be spent and circulated in the economy. A substantial amount of African Americans are lower class, so they are much more inclined to spend reparation money than the more wealthy. An increase in consumer spending would lead to an increase in aggregate expenditures, which would then lead to an increase in real GDP and an overall healthier and more active economy. The government would certainly not fall apart, as Kathy predicts, even if the increase in debt is permanent. Kathy says there has been a history of backlash with reparations as shown by the Angry Hawaiians, but she fails to provide any information about the negative repercussions of these so-called Angry Hawaiians. She then jumps to the conclusion that the reparations were of no use, even though countless families benefited from the extra money they received just because other people were angry. To answer Kathy's question of if a black person and a white person were married, then how would we pay reparations? Reparations would be paid to the black person. Reparations should be considered as a payment for the work that slaves never received payment for, so for a marriage with someone of a different race shouldn't have any effect on how reparation payments should be made. In Kathy's last point of ancestry, she asks, why do African Americans need money? Well, because African Americans have essentially been set up for failure after the abolition of slavery, as they were given little to no promising job opportunities and were put in areas of high poverty and lesser education. As noted before, 31% of African Americans use food stamps as compared to just 15% of other races, so African Americans clearly need money for food. Japanese Americans have in fact been given reparation payments even though they have endured far lesser and shorter injustices compared to African Americans, and even the Native Americans were given land that only they could build casinos on.